It has finally happened. The Bitcoin ETF is now live. There are going to be tens of billions of dollars flowing into Bitcoin, and Michael Saylor himself is predicting a $15 million Bitcoin. This is the real deal. This is game on. Right here, we have the tweet from the U.S. Securities Commission here. We have today the SEC grants approval for Bitcoin ETFs for all listing on all national securities exchanges. The Bitcoin ETF will be subject to ongoing surveillance and compliance measures to ensure continued investor protection. This is a tweet that Gary Gensler from the SEC has just put out here. It's already got 2 million views. This is the real U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission account, over 500,000 followers, and it is so exciting now that the Bitcoin ETF is finally approved. Or is it? Actually, that's fake news. That's not real. Okay, and this actually gets to a larger point I want to make here. This is still going to be very important for you to understand. Okay, Gary Gensler announced shortly after the tweet I just showed you went out that the SEC Twitter account was compromised and an unauthorized tweet was posted, aka this tweet. He's saying the SEC has not approved the listing and trading of spot Bitcoin exchange traded products at this current time. And my friend Walker down here makes an excellent question. How are you supposed to protect investors when you cannot protect your own Twitter account? Walker, I think that's a great question, especially when we have such a volatile asset like Bitcoin in question here. See, this is not just some little gaffe of some tweet here. The whole purpose of the SEC is to protect investors. And this massive, unbelievably embarrassing error for the SEC and for Gary Gensler right now. This is one of the most anticipated events. We know it's going to happen. You know, I'm recording this on January 9th. We know it's going to happen very soon. And as we saw with this tweet here, okay, just here's some perspective on why this should be embarrassing and why this should really have you question the, let's say, resolve and integrity, not integrity, but the security of the SEC. Here we have Bitcoin price over the last day, and we see that when the initial tweet went out saying the ETF was approved from the verified SEC account, we see Bitcoin immediately began to spike. It immediately went up about $2,000 US. Moments later, when Gary Gensler corrected the tweet, the price crashed back down to now below where it's been trading at all day. Okay. As a side note, what do you think is going to happen when the ETF actually is approved? I wonder what's going to happen. Maybe price might go up violently. Something to think about there. A little peek of what's to come. But my point is, the whole purpose of this organization is to protect investors. And this is incredibly embarrassing that if they're supposed to manage hundreds of billions of dollars of Bitcoin to make sure that custodians are securely storing Bitcoin for people, and yet they can't even secure their Twitter account to have one of the single most important announcements be falsely announced mere hours or days before it is expected to be announced. This is unbelievable oversight. Very, very bad PR here. However, I'm not going to leave you hanging on to clickbait. We are actually going to follow through on that $15 million Bitcoin number here, okay? First, before we get to 15 million, we have to start a little more conservative. We have to start a little more bearish. Okay, here's an article from Business Insider yesterday talking about how Bitcoin could soar another 344% this year, given the reality that Bitcoin went up over 160% in the year 2023, despite the lack of FASB approval, ETF approval, plus 3-year sentiment lows for Bitcoin. I don't think a 344% increase at any point is that unreasonable. A year? Maybe that's a little much, but we'll see. Let's go on to see why the article is talking about this. A 344% move from current price levels takes us to $200,000 by the end of next year. Excuse me. So just about 2 years. Okay. And again, this all has to come back down to the ETF and the huge inflows, which I'll get back to in a second. Now, who on earth is saying this? Who is, Markets Insider underneath Business Insider. Who are they talking about? Well, this is someone I tweeted about yesterday. Okay, this is Standard Chartered. This is international bank here, and this is one of their reports from January 8th, just yesterday from the time of recording, about Bitcoin price potential upon approval of the U.S. spot ETF. The U.S. SEC is expected to approve spot ETFs for Bitcoin immediately. Yes, they did. Actually, no, wait, they don't. That was fake news because they can't secure a Twitter account with a 2FA authentication. If they can't manage 2FA authentication on their Twitter account, makes me really question their ability to manage Bitcoin private keys, but that's a question for later in the video. So point is that when the ETF is approved, this means that there could potentially be significant Bitcoin price upside based on historical experience of gold ETFs, as well as the market demand for Bitcoin here. Now, what they go on to talk about in these following paragraphs here is that they fully expect, as this article claims, Bitcoin could go to $100,000 or even $200,000 within the next 2 years or less. However, I have a problem with that analysis because in this analysis of theirs that they're making here, they have a really big problem. I don't think most people, including them, realize how big of a problem it is. Okay, they assume that between 437,000 and 1.32 million new Bitcoins will be held in spot US ETFs by end 2024. There are 1.8 million Bitcoin on exchanges. And you think that the spot ETFs together are going to buy 1.3 up to 1.3 million Bitcoin, only having 500,000 Bitcoin remaining? Okay, let's put this in perspective. Michael Saylor, via his company MicroStrategy, has acquired approximately 189,150 Bitcoin over the last 3.5 years. If this little page here is correct in saying that we think Bitcoin could go to $200,000 with $50 to $100 billion of inflows buying up 1.32 million Bitcoins, that means that there's only room for 2.5 more Michael Saylor / MicroStrategy level buys in the history of the world. Okay, there are 1,100 companies on the planet larger than MicroStrategy. Do you think 2 of them are going to want to copy Michael Saylor at some point in the future? I think so. And so something is horribly wrong with this article here. Either their price target of $200,000 per Bitcoin by the end of 2025 is way too bearish, or option 2, they are vastly overestimating the amount of demand that is going to come from this Bitcoin ETF, or there's no way they're getting 1.3 million Bitcoin. It simply is not going to happen. Okay, again, they are saying they're going to acquire, or that all the ETFs together, they are expecting to acquire anywhere from 500,000 to 1.33 million Bitcoin, and it's only going to send price up to $100,000 US by end of 2024, or $200,000 by the end of 2025. Okay, I respect their bullishness. I respect they're bullish on Bitcoin. I get it, but think about this, people. If you think the statement is correct that the ETFs are going to be approved, and if you think the statement is correct that we're looking at $50 to $100 billion of inflows to Bitcoin, then the $200,000 price target is way, way, way too bearish, in my opinion. Again, something has to give. Either they're not going to get the 1.3 million coins, or the price is way too bearish and it's not going to be, something's going to give. And so let's put a visual representation on this, because all these numbers tend to get a little jumbled in our brains. So let's put this on a nice bar chart here. I posted this last night. Okay, let's keep this in perspective. Michael Saylor is this little tiny small red column on the left. MicroStrategy is the darker orange column to the right of that. The proposed Bitcoin ETF demand of 1.32 million Bitcoin is this light orange marker here. And then this tallest column are the remaining Bitcoin on exchanges, roughly 1.8 or roughly 1.78 million Bitcoin, depending on the time you're watching this. Okay, look at this, people. If that large red bar was the housing market, and I told you that that light orange bar was new buyers for houses for the first time ever in the next 18 months, what would you say? Would you go out and buy a house, or would you time the market and sell the house? Would you wait for a recession? Would you wait for a credit event? Would you wait for your financial advisor to tell you to buy some? Would you wait? Come on, be serious. Supply and demand, folks. This is simple reality. Okay, I don't know where Bitcoin price is going in the short term. I'm not going to make a short-term prediction. Okay, unlike those folks making a $200,000 Bitcoin short-term prediction. Okay, but think first principles. It took MicroStrategy 3.5 years to get that little column you see. The Bitcoin ETF, if that $50 billion to $100 billion demand is correct, we are looking at a number many, many times larger in 1/4 the period of time. Okay, Imagine Michael Saylor buying 5 times as much Bitcoin as he did with the same conviction as he did 4 times faster. What do you think that would do for Bitcoin price? Don't overthink this, people. This is one of the only times in Bitcoin history, if not the only time in Bitcoin's history, where we know, at least up to this point, where we know there was a massive amount, there was a wall of money, there was a massive pile of demand just waiting for the ETF to be approved. Okay. Financial advisors cannot yet recommend Bitcoin because there's not a regulated ETF, because ETFs are safe and secure. There is not yet a way for them to encourage clients to take a 1%, 2%, or 5% allocation. Okay. And they would not be filing for these ETFs if the demand was not there. Okay. It's incredibly important to keep these things in mind. So, do I think that this rumor of a $100,000 to $200,000 Bitcoin is bullish? No, absolutely not. And here's why. The all-time high for Bitcoin in terms of the US dollar, or perhaps a better way to think of it, is that the all-time low of the US dollar in terms of Bitcoin was $69,000 per singular Bitcoin. Okay, this occurred in 2021. Okay, now here we are coming up on 3 years later. Okay, the dollar has debased so much that the new all-time high for Bitcoin in terms of dollars, or because the unit of account you're measuring from, aka dollars, has fallen in value so much that the new all-time high for Bitcoin is $82,000 in today's dollars. Okay, yes, and I know I'm going to get hate comments for this in the comments because people don't understand what I'm saying. Okay, please, before you write a hate comment, please, take 5 seconds, think through what I'm saying here. Okay, Bitcoin in 2021 was worth $69,000. Now, those $69,000 are worth less because we printed more currency units. And now it will take $82,000 to acquire the same Bitcoin if Bitcoin had the same real terms purchasing power. Okay, that makes $47,000, which is Bitcoin's current price, seem kind of cheap. We're nowhere near $82,000, at least yet. Okay, now, if we assume that the dollar continues to debase out to 2026, easily $100,000 per Bitcoin could be in reason for the same purchasing power it had almost 3 years ago. $100,000 per Bitcoin is not bullish. It is simply Bitcoin's 2021 value in terms of 2026 dollars. $100,000 per Bitcoin is not bullish. $200,000 per Bitcoin is not bullish. 500,000, probably not bullish either. So my point is that when you are measuring Bitcoin in terms of political currency system that every year is designed to force housing prices to go up forever, that is designed to force stock prices to go up forever, that is designed to force all hard assets to go up forever, it is not bullish to say that asset is going up in any amount of those political currency units. Okay, it simply doesn't make any sense. We have already been at $100,000 per Bitcoin, obviously in 2026 dollar terms, not in today's dollar terms, but 2026 now is only 2 years away. Okay, $100,000 per Bitcoin is not bullish. Okay, I cannot repeat this enough. This is not bullish. I'm going to retweet this actually just for the sake of it. You should like my tweets and follow me on Twitter. Anyway, so let's get on to the next point. Okay, we've talked about $100,000 Bitcoin. That's not bullish. $200,000 Bitcoin, they're simply not. They're getting something wrong. Let's get to the longer term, the bigger picture of what's going on here. Let's look at something Michael Saylor said, and this is where we get to the big number, the big clickbait: $15 million of Bitcoin. Okay, is 15 million going to happen next week? No, probably not. Maybe, probably not. Next year? No, maybe, probably not. Going out a couple years, go out 10 years. All of a sudden, if you actually take the work, sit down and do the math, it's not nearly as preposterous as you would think. Okay, and don't take my word for it. Take Michael Saylor's word for it. Okay, Michael Saylor thinks Bitcoin could go to $5 million. He has stated this repeatedly on podcasts that he has been on over the last 3 years. Okay, he has said Bitcoin is going to $5 million on the condition of 3 integrations of Bitcoin into the traditional finance system, thus allowing Wall Street financial advisors and traditional markets to have their energy flow into Bitcoin. Okay, now let's go through the list here. FASB accounting, that was approved December of 2023, not even a month ago. That was approved. Check. All right, let's go to number 2. We have the ETF approved. If you like to believe the false information that the securities Twitter account is putting out, if you want to believe the fake news that the SEC is putting out, then it's approved, right? Check. Now, let's go to the third one. Banks, people being able to borrow against their Bitcoin. This is something I'll get to in just a moment with my work at the Bitcoin Advisor. This is something we are going to be able to help clients with. It is such a privilege and an honor and so much fun to be helping people with number 3, helping accelerate that adoption. Okay, that of the 3 things I just listed is the slowest coming along happening. It's not an overnight thing like FASB and the ETF. However, it's coming, and it's coming really aggressively. Not every bank will accept it at first, but more and more banks will be able to borrow and lend against their Bitcoin perpetually. This means that people will never have to sell their Bitcoin. They could just borrow more political currency units against their Bitcoin. In the same way, you don't want to ever sell your real estate, just borrow against it forever. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. You don't want to sell your Bitcoin, borrow against it forever. Now, also, full disclosure, I do not recommend people borrow against their Bitcoin right now. Like, please don't do it. We've got a really volatile period for Bitcoin adoption here. I think it's really unwise to do it. But, that's just my personal opinion. Point is, check. We now have all 3 here checked off, ready to go. He is also, again, I'm referring to Michael Saylor, not me. Michael Saylor has also repeatedly said on stage that a 500x in purchasing power, which is $15 million. Okay, not a 500x in fiat price, because again, who cares if you're measuring in terms of dollars? Okay, in a couple of years, $100,000 of Bitcoin is not even bullish, because that was the purchasing power of Bitcoin almost 3 years ago in 2021. Okay, stop pricing Bitcoin in US dollars, start pricing in terms of purchasing power. Michael Saylor has said repeatedly, yes, Bitcoin is going to $5 million if you want to measure in terms of flawed political currency units, or even better, he has said repeatedly it's going up 500x in terms of purchasing power. Now, how do we equate that value? Well, at the time of recording, a 500x in purchasing power in today's dollars, okay, in modern 2024 dollars, that is $15 million. In 2027 or 2029 dollars, that might be $30 million. Okay, a decade from now, that might be $50 million. Who knows? Point is, there's a lot of upside ahead. There are a lot of order of magnitude. There are a lot of zeros to be added to the end of Bitcoin's price. Okay, and if you don't believe me that Michael Saylor said this stuff, let's read some quotes here on this potential approval of the ETF here, which again is number 2 checklist for Saylor. Okay, Michael Saylor's quote: "Bitcoin is going to grind up to replace gold. It will go to 500,000 a coin regardless, but there are 3 things that are massive catalysts to cause an acceleration. Those 3 things don't take us to $500,000. They take us to 5 million. Okay, let's go to the other part of the quote. A spot ETF where someone can go ahead and buy 100 million in Bitcoin, buy an ETF security. I think that's 1. 2, your bank will custody it for you and lend against it. And 3 is I can mark it up or mark it down based on balance sheet fair value accounting. Okay, that third one there is the FASB. The ETF there is the first one he mentioned, and the other one, of course, is the banks. And this quote here, among many others from many other people, is why Gary Gensler and the SEC should make really careful consideration to not allowing their Twitter account to be compromised, because if they do, they might cause Bitcoin price to be a little bit too volatile. All right, again, very embarrassing. I can't believe they did. But point is, this is not me saying this. Okay, that's Michael Saylor saying it. And like, you can disagree with Michael Saylor. I disagree with Saylor on plenty of things. Okay, but you have to understand, game on, baby. Whenever the ETF is approved, it's definitely not approved right now, since it's fake news. But when it's approved, game on. Bitcoin's $47,000 right now. Okay, it's spiked up upon the news, quote unquote, the approval of. I'm actually gonna check Bitcoin price right now because I'm really curious what it's doing. Oh yeah, look at that. Woo, look at that. It's crashing real time. You're watching it with me real time. I see. I knew something would happen. See, this is what happens when you post fake news, people. Okay, Bitcoin price went from $46,000, skyrocketed up to $47,900, and now it's back down to 40. Okay, Bitcoin's on a 3% crash today so far. That's awesome. Great. More purchasing power given to my political currency units that I can get rid of before they continue to fall down to 0. Look at that. That's so funny. Thank you, Gary, for giving me some cheap sats. I really appreciate it. I'm probably going to buy some more tonight. But point is, the original reason I pulled this up was not to make fun of Gary and how they're manipulating Bitcoin price, which is actually the thing they're mandated to not do. But the funny thing is that as soon as it was approved, you see, like, this is what's going to happen, people. As soon as it's approved, it's just going to skyrocket and it's just going to continue up. Okay, that was just a few minutes of people falsely believing from a Twitter post that it was out. Okay, imagine it's the real news, and imagine what's posted on Bloomberg, not on Twitter. Okay, no one's ever going to trust their Twitter account again. That's so funny. But what's the takeaway for you? takeaway is ETF's coming. Now, later, at some point, the ETF is coming. And when it comes, $100,000 is in play. $200,000 is in play. And to quote Michael Saylor, not $500,000, $5 million is in play. All three of his checklists have been crossed as soon as the ETF is approved. Okay, millions of dollars per Bitcoin are in play. Do I think we're going to have million dollar Bitcoin this cycle, as in the next couple of years? I don't know. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. Okay, it's entirely possible the ETF creates a lot of paper Bitcoin, siphons demand away, in which case ETFs will implode. Bitcoin price will eventually skyrocket, but that might mean for a couple of years Bitcoin price is suppressed. Okay, these banks have been doing this with gold and silver for decades. They've paid hundreds of millions of dollars in fines to the SEC and other commissions for their fraud, essentially, in these ETFs. And the same thing potentially could happen with Bitcoin. The difference, obviously, is that gold cycles could easily be 40 or 80 years. Bitcoin cycles are roughly 3 to 4 years. So point is, whenever manipulation could suppress Bitcoin price is probably going to be short-lived. And when that price suppression occurs, you should definitely not hold these underlying ETFs. Instead, you should hold the underlying asset, okay? I've gotten in a lot of Twitter battles recently trying to warn people to not buy the ETF, okay? And again, I'm going to make this message very clear. Please do not buy the Bitcoin ETF unless you are in some really strange, rare circumstance that I don't even know really what the reasoning would be. But you have to keep in mind, I was here warning people about FTX, okay? People told me, Luke, you're crazy. Luke, you're paranoid. Luke, shut up. That's a lot of FUD. Stop. You're part of the problem. Bitcoin maxi, shut up. I was right. Sorry. I like to be cheerful and constructive, but it's hard to be cheerful and constructive when I was vindicated on something that was so devastating to people. Okay, again, let us reframe this. FTX was the most regulated exchange, in America. Okay, it was the closest with the SEC and Gary Gensler. Why? Because SBF was donating a lot of money to these politicians. There was a lot of corruption. Okay, this was an article that came out the day after FTX began imploding. How FTX bought its way to become the world's quote unquote most regulated crypto exchange. Okay, this is an article from Reuters. This is not me telling you. Okay, that's how the world was. It's easy for us to forget how naive the world was just a couple years ago, but it was. I know so many people that lost so much money in the FTX collapse, and I tried to warn them. Get your coins off the exchange. This is a really bad exchange. It's really sketchy. A lot of weird stuff. Oh, but look, it's regulated. It's regulated. It's safe. It's all fine. You should be cheerful and constructive. I try to be cheerful and constructive, and I think I do a pretty good job. But sometimes you gotta be. What you want to hear is not the same as what you need to hear. Do not hold your Bitcoin on exchanges. Do not hold your Bitcoin in an ETF. The vast majority of the ETFs are custodied with Coinbase. Do not hold your Bitcoin on Coinbase. Do not hold your Bitcoin on Binance. Do not hold it on PayPal. Do not hold it on Venmo. Do not hold your Bitcoin on these exchanges. Bitcoin is a bearer asset that has massive volatility, skyrocketing 200, 300% in a given year, and then crashing 30, 50, or 70% in a given year. You do not want an asset with that volatility custodied by people that can't manage their Twitter account. You don't trust Gary Gensler with his Twitter account. You don't trust the information these people give you. So why do you trust them with your life savings? It's that simple, people. Oh, but they're regulated. Oh, they have incentives. Oh, they would never do that. Please, I'm telling you, people, this is exactly how this is going to happen. I was begging people to buy Bitcoin at $16,000 per coin. Now Bitcoin's almost tripled up to $50,000 of Bitcoin. Market sentiment is still at $3. Okay, I've been begging people to buy Bitcoin. They didn't. The people in the suits, the people in the ties, and the people that were regulated told you that it was too unsafe and too regulated because FTX, Bitcoin's unsafe because FTX blew up, blah, 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 blah. Don't buy Bitcoin at $16,000 because, FTX blew up and it's unsafe. Okay, here we are now, just barely over a year later, ETFs about to be approved. Financial advisors are going to be pushing this pretty soon. Okay, that's just the reality. Surveys have been estimating anywhere between 70 to 90% of financial advisors are going to begin recommending Bitcoin as soon as they have an ETF product to recommend. Okay, my message for you, for those of you watching in the future that have not lived through these times, like I have lived through these times, I am warning you. Okay, these people in the suit told you to avoid Bitcoin because, it's a wild, wild west, and because it's dangerous, and because it's uncertain. Okay, it's not. The very things we tried to warn you against, okay, FTX, the very things we tried to warn you against are precisely what the ETFs are. Do not trust FTX because it is paper Bitcoin. Do not trust the ETFs because it is paper Bitcoin. Okay, I get so much criticism in the comments. I get so much criticism from people with so many more followers than me, with so much more money than me, with so many more PhDs and letters at the end of the name than me. I get so much criticism for these people for spreading fake news, where in the reality, I'm trying to spread the real truth. I'm trying to spread the message to not buy the ETF, because the very people that are having you buy the ETF are the people spreading the fake news. It's extremely simple. It's extremely simple. Okay. Buy Bitcoin, hold it, self custody. Do not day trade. Do not leverage. Do not borrow against it. It is that simple. Buy it, store it, forget it. That's it. Don't go on FTX chasing yield. Don't do the paper ETF. Okay. Probably most ETFs are going to be fine for some period of time. However, if there are 1.8 million Bitcoin on exchanges, which we know there are because we all can verify that's the reality of what's going on here. Okay, again, the ETFs are claiming that they want to acquire almost all the Bitcoin on exchanges. Okay, and when there are two more Michael Saylor level entries, that is all the Bitcoin. What do you think is going to happen when Bitcoin price starts ripping? It goes past all these little tiny expectations of 100,000 or 200,000. It just keeps going up and up and up on a vertical spike. What do you think is going to happen? People are going to panic. People are going to freak out, and they're going to say, you know, I don't really want this paper Bitcoin ETF anymore because I kind of want the underlying asset. Can I withdraw? No, you can withdraw in cash. Oh, and if there's a 10% move in Bitcoin, trading is going to be halted. We're going to halt trading if there's a 10% move on the Bitcoin ETF. And oh, you can only withdraw cash from your Bitcoin ETF. And oh, you know, hopefully we don't go under, and hopefully we can manage our keys better on our Twitter account. It's extremely simple. Do not buy it. Do not recommend it. I know I might be pounding this over the head for the people that understand this message, but please hear what I'm saying. If you understand this message, hear what I'm saying and share it with your friends, because most people this upcoming Bitcoin cycle are going to get rug pulled from some sort of scam. Okay, FTX was not the end of corruption. It was the beginning. Next, we have the ETFs and the big banking battle with Bitcoin. After that, we probably have the nation state battle, which potentially could be the final event, the final hyperinflationary event in the early 2030s. Maybe not, maybe late 2030s. I don't know. I'm not going to predict that. Timing's impossible. The end result, I do believe, is inevitable because of feedback loops and game theory, but timing, who knows? Point is, at one point or the other, even if 90% of the ETFs survive the next 10 years, do you want to take a 10% gamble that you're going to lose your Bitcoin for your future generations? Do you want to do that? Okay. Do you want to take the guess that, oh, of these 20 exchanges to choose from, I'm going to choose one of the right 14 ones because those other 6 are going to implode? Do you want to take that guess? Do you really want to be deciding between your ETF? Oh, this ETF charges a 0.8% fee and this ETF charges a 0.49% fee. So I'm going to arbitrage that 0.3%. No, it doesn't matter. Forget the fees. You're picking up pennies in front of a steamroller. Forget the fees. Buy the underlying. Stop trying to arbitrage between the two things. Go buy the real thing. Please, if you're watching this, get your coins out of Coinbase, because there is so much money coming, and it's going to demand all the coins away from Coinbase, because again, Coinbase is the custodian for the majority of the ETFs, for BlackRock, for these institutions. I will say, you know, Fidelity, good on you for doing self-custody, but still that doesn't justify it because you're doing self-custody on behalf of your clients. But point is that people, you got to take self-custody. You got to take this seriously, okay? And I'm telling you, I'm seeing this explode in real time. People ask me, Luke, why do you talk about the Bitcoin advisor so much? Why do you talk about what you do? We don't care. We just want the content. Okay, fine. But the reality is most of you need to hear this. Again, what you want to hear versus what you need to hear is not the same. Most of you are going to realize, oh my goodness, when Bitcoin goes to $15 million a coin, I'm not prepared. I've got 3 Bitcoin. Am I prepared to have $45 million on a single seed phrase in my house safe? Are you ready for that? How many people have you told about Bitcoin? If Bitcoin were to go to $200,000, $500,000, $1 million, $5 million, or $15 million, that's a big problem when it comes to theft. If you've got a few $1,000,000 on a seed phrase in your house vault, safe, that's a big target for a lot of people. And unfortunately, the higher Bitcoin's price goes, the bigger target you're going to get. Okay, so please keep these things in mind. Okay, if you want to protect against theft, if you want to protect against the nation state attack, okay, because there will be nation state attacks. We saw there was China trying to ban their Bitcoin. I am an optimist in general, but you have to keep these things in mind. Okay, nation states are going to come after Bitcoin. What are they going to do? They're probably going to come after Coinbase, aka the ETFs, aka don't hold your Bitcoin in the ETF because you don't really own Bitcoin. But even if you self-custody, the nation state attack is a really important consideration you have to make. Okay, so how are you going to do that? Okay, how are you going to protect against that? Okay, and eventually, the nation state probability is a probability. The ETFs collapsing is a probability. Coinbase collapsing, all these things are probabilities. The certainty is that you're going to die. You got kids, you got grandkids, you got a spouse. Okay, do you have a wife? Ask your wife, ask your husband, ask your partner, whomever. If something were to happen, if I were to suddenly lose my memory, would you know how to help me recover my seed phrase? If they look at you like that, you're in trouble. If you ask your partner, if you ask your spouse, hey, if something happened to me, would you be able to get our Bitcoin to feed our kids? They look at you like that, you got a problem. Okay, please, if you need self-custody, if you're on an exchange and you're terrified to take self-custody, please do it now. Okay, I'm trying to help you guys with, 1 coin, 3 coins, half a coin, 5 coins. I don't care. I'm trying to help you guys get self-custody now in these vaults with 0 single point of failure now, because FASB rules have just been approved barely a month ago, because the ETF any moment now is going to get approved. Okay, I'm trying to help you guys do this now because the demand is coming. People tell me, oh, Luke, you're overpriced. Oh, Luke, why you charge so much? And it's like, you don't understand. My rate is going up and up, and these people are coming in. Okay, politicians, low-ranking politicians, mayors or whatever, but these people message me. Okay, the average person that's going to be seeking these kinds of self-custody solutions, okay, it's going to grow. It's going to go from everyday individuals, blue collar folks, to high net worth individuals and millionaires, to small companies, to large companies, to pension funds. Okay, the wall of money is going to get larger and larger and larger. And please do not underestimate the dramatic exponential curve that we are looking at here. Please get off zero. Buy some Bitcoin today. Are you ready for Bitcoin to go up dramatically? And these things, maybe we don't have $15 million Bitcoin for a long time, but by that long time occurs, it's going to be a $30 million Bitcoin. Okay, remember Hal Finney, back January 11th, so 15 years and 2 days ago from today, Hal Finney predicted a $10 million Bitcoin. 15 years and 2 days ago, a $10 million Bitcoin. That now is adjusted upwards to $27 million because of that fiat debasement. Okay, that doesn't make Michael Saylor's prediction sound so bold. If Michael Saylor could predict that Bitcoin's going to $15 million, make that prediction over a year ago in 2023, Hal Finney making that in the first week of Bitcoin's existence, the first Bitcoin user besides Satoshi himself, Hal Finney, if he can make that prediction, pretty interesting and compelling to me. So my point is, please, the takeaway from this video, don't believe the fake news from these people. Okay, they are telling you the ETF is approved. Actually, it's not. It's fake news. They're telling you the ETF is safe. It's regulated. It's just fine. No, it's not. Counterparty risk is never an acceptable risk when you have a bear asset underlying. Okay, for other assets, it's an acceptable risk. For a bear asset, with the volatility of Bitcoin, with the scarcity of Bitcoin, with the upcoming wall of demand, counterparty risk is never, never a safe, acceptable allocation. Besides some very, very, very tiny exceptions. Okay, I'll get hate for saying it, but it's true. For very tiny exceptions, but for the vast majority of you, get off zero, buy some Bitcoin, prepare for the upwards volatility. Consider, am I protected against the theft of my seed phrase? Am I protected? Have I taken care of my seed phrase perpetually, right? Like, I might have broken in your house, taken a picture of your seed phrase, and I might be sitting and waiting. You might think your wallet's safe because you've put half a Bitcoin on it. What happens when you put another Bitcoin on it? Maybe I take it then. There was zero warning when it comes to theft. There was very little warning when it comes to the nation state attack. And then oftentimes, unfortunately, there's zero warning when it comes to death. And in Bitcoin's case with the ETF, apparently now since we can't trust Gary Gensler, there may be zero warning when the ETF is approved. So I don't know. Point is, get off zero, get yourself custody down. If you want help creating a multi-sig vault, please message me in the description below. I'll be more than happy to help you consider all the risks and trade-offs with your Bitcoin custody. And please take it seriously because the time is getting shorter and shorter. We're running out of time. Please do it now. Click the link in the description. Bye.